So Tommy asked if anyone has any better ideas. The answer is yes, I do. That's not surprising because I've been active in this movement for 38 years. I don't blame Tommy for not having a clue because he's been at it for just 3 years. Give him his due. That's been 3 years longer than most of the sheeple out there, and it's been 3 years in which he's shown a lot of drive and a lot of guts. But when it comes to experience, when it comes to using your brain for a better way forward, my 38 years is a lot more use than his 3. So here's what needs to be done. We produced a grooming booklet, a booklet aimed at young girls of 10 and 11 and 12 to wake them up and save them from the menace of Muslim grooming. We need to get that into schools. We need youngsters, and especially we need women, being outside school gates of the 11 and the 12-year-olds, handing them to them, handing to their mums, waking people up. It'll save children from what is truly a horrible fate. It will also help to wake up and radicalise our community, because part of the problem is too many people are still asleep. If you watch the BBC, you'd never know there's a grooming problem out there. It's our duty as activists, whatever group we're in, to take this material, get out there and talk to the people. The media will go berserk about the fact that nationalists are talking to youngsters outside school gates, and that's what will do the trick for spreading the message far and wide and protecting our kids. Secondly, we need a wider anti-grooming campaign. The Muslims have shown how to do this in various places. In Balsall Heath, for instance, a couple of years ago, they felt they had a problem with the red light district that was operating on the edge of Balsall Heath, and they dealt with it. How did they deal with it? Not with baseball bats and violence, things that have led to their young lads getting put in prison for a fairly long time, even though they're Muslims. No, their weapon was the video camera, the mobile phone camera. They simply went out night after night along the red light district of Balsall Heath, and they took photos and they took video footage, not of the girls on the streets, but of the rich businessmen in their BMWs and their Mercedes and their Jags, curb crawling. And then they took the details off those cars. They took the car registration plates and they used one of their clamping companies to check who owns those cars, and then they wrote to them. Only they didn't write to Mr. Blenkinsop Smythe, they wrote to Mrs. Blenkinsop Smythe, saying, do you know where your husband was last Friday night? And here's the photos. And within a few weeks, that red light district died, and they got what they regard as their area run the way that they want. People power done by the Muslims. And the police said that's a good thing. Well, I want to know why we can't do that in our communities and encourage our people, local people, empower them with guidelines and template leaflets on how they start to build up a campaign against grooming, about how they confront the groomers with video cameras, with this technology, and they get them out of our community, get them back to their ghettos where they belong. And this is something where nationalists need to lead the community, and in particular where the ladies, where the angels need to be involved. I've watched and I've studied the EDL, and references made to the angels, but nothing's done with them. They're just like a pretty picture. It's crazy. Women are the ideal people to work with other women in a community, to mobilise a community, and we need to provide the tools for them to get on with that important job. Moving on to point 3. We need local action. A lot's been said by the EDL about flash demonstrations, but a flash demonstration isn't something where you give the police and the Reds and the opposition a week's notice. A flash demonstration is when you go in and out with a group of your own people connected by a telephone tree. You pick a target, such as, for instance, a shop selling halal meat, and you go in straight away, bang, you do your protest, you get out again. The EDL did this, I believe it was in Liverpool, and stopped KFC, one of KFC branches, selling halal meat. The British National Party had done it on Tyneside, and we stopped Subway selling halal meat. Pressure works. It's been done by the EDL in Scotland, where Asda have announced they're not selling halal meat anymore. It's because activists have gone out there intelligently, quickly, in, out, no notice to the police, no notice to the opposition, but the businesses who are hit feel it. And every time a victory like that is won, it makes it easier to win more. That's how we need to use our manpower. Point 4, again, using flash demonstrations. We need to start to apply real pressure against the establishment traitors who are the ones really to blame. Because the rise of Islamification isn't primarily the fault of the Muslims. It's the fault of the ruling class in Britain who let them get away with it, who are allowing them to Islamify Britain, who, as they always do, are appeasing the bullies. And when these people are rich upper-class traitors, bully our people, when the Crown Prosecution Service decide that they're going to arrest and jail and harass an Emma West for speaking her mind on the streets, then our people should turn up on their doorsteps on a Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning with a loudhailer and leaflets for the neighbours, letting them know why their Sunday's being disturbed, because they live next to a politically correct bully who's an absolute scumbag. Now, they can always replace these people, but I tell you this, that when some of their people start to think, I've got a choice here, do I go for this piece of white trash and have all this trouble on my doorstep and have my wife hysterical about it, or do I turn a blind eye and let him get away with it? And I tell you, these people are bullies, and bullies always back down when someone stands up to them. So we need to start doing that. Point number 5. When we start upsetting the people in power, they're going to hit back. So we need to train our people. Before we send them out on any kind of demonstration, people need to know what to say, what they can and can't chant, what they can have on placards, what they can do, what they need to avoid. These things are important. We can't just throw our members into confrontations and get them arrested. Most of all, people need to know what to do if arrested, because it's something that's happening in Britain more and more and more to members of our community just for standing up for themselves. So, I'm not just lecturing about airy-fairy ideas. I've really taken a step on this one. We've completed a booklet produced by Shield Wall, the Nationalist Welfare Association, which tells people in absolute clear detail, step by step by step, what's going to happen when you're arrested and what you need to do to walk free. Incidentally, as you'll find when you'll read it and spread it around, really it's summed up in a very, very simple phrase. Whatever you say nothing. No comment, no comment, no comment. That's what we need to get into our people's heads so the police don't con them into prison sentences or into fines. And the police actions in Scotland, in Liverpool, in London on Remembrance Day, primarily against the EDL, where it's outrageous when they kettled and arrested dozens and dozens of EDL just so they had a balance for the fact that they'd outlawed those Islamic crazes. These sort of things going on show how irresponsible it is for any leadership to push our people in the direction of some kind of confrontation without providing them with this backing, so they've got the best chance of keeping on doing it and not going to prison. So when that booklet's out on the internet, do whatever group you're in, whether you like me or loathe me, read that message and pass it on and look after your comrades. Point 6, connected to that. When you see time and time again the police on demonstrations being so out of order, as they were down in Walthamstow, literally punching young white lads in the face because they're saying, I want to go out, I've got to use the toilet, or words to that effect, we need to deal with that. And we can deal with it. It's only the fact that the police think they can get away with it, because if it's filmed by the BBC, they know that the footage will never be shown on television. They'll know that we couldn't get it from the BBC. They think they're safe. So we need our own video observer teams. They're as civil liberties observers, not as part of the demonstration. They're with high-vis jackets on so that the police know they're separate, videoing it. That invariably makes the police behave themselves. If it doesn't, if they say, well, they may be wearing a high-vis jacket, but they're still only poor white trash, so we'll club them, then there's an answer to that as well. See that? Key fob. It's also a video camera. It's about a tenner, that's all, on the internet. You can get video cameras in almost any way, shape or form now, and that is enough to catch the police out once, to get police prosecuted, perhaps even jailed for brutality against English, Scottish, Irish, Northern Irish civil rights activists, and they won't do it again. We need to do that. That's point 6. Point 7. Whatever we do in terms of teaching people how to deal with police interrogation and so on, teaching them how to deal with demonstrations, it's inevitable in this struggle, sooner or later, that people do get fined, do get convicted, do get sent to prison. And we need a legal defence fund. We need to have money and assets and resources and contacts with solicitors to provide help for people who are in court, and if the worst comes to the worst, to provide at least some help towards paying their fine. Not the whole lot, or some people will just go out there and do crazy stuff just for fun. You know that as well as I do. But if, say, we could pay 1/3, it's what we used to do in the 1980s with the Nationalist Welfare Association. It worked very well. We paid 1/3 of people's fines. It's enough to show them they're not alone. It's not enough to give them the idea they can do whatever they damn well like. It keeps our community, keeps our movement together. Really important as well. And in something like the EDL, which is dominated, despite the many women involved, it's dominated by this macho idea of marching down the streets and so on. Whose streets are streets? All well and good. But when someone's got sent to prison for it, it's their family who can't afford to see them. When their wife or girlfriend's got to decide, do we go and see him this week, or do I buy that pair of shoes for the kids? That's not fair. That's unacceptable. It doesn't have to happen. We need to provide an aid network for the families of people who are in prison. And again, it's something for which the ladies of groups like the EDL would be absolutely fantastic if they're only told, yeah, that's it, go and do it. We'll respect you for it and we'll help you where we can. Moving on to point 8, and connected to that. There's got to be effort to raise funds and to sink roots in local communities. There's individuals actually doing great work out there in all sorts of different groups that are spun off from the EDL, in various groups, nationalist groups, patriotic groups, all sorts of people doing great work in their local communities, raising funds for soldiers' charities locally, things like that. But they're all tending to reinvent the wheel, or they're missing things. Struggles like the one we're in cost money. It won't come from the state. It won't come from big business. It won't come from the leftist unions. It shouldn't come from foreigners who just want to use us. So it can only come, it has to come from our community and from us. And again, this is a role ideally for the ladies in this movement. So the movement needs to produce a simple video guide, simple booklets, training people, checklists, teaching them how to go out, how to work with the community, giving them 20 good ideas for raising funds painlessly from local people for a good local cause connected to us. And we need, once they get out and do that, we need to provide recognition for the unsung heroines, the ones who provide the backbone and the back resources so that the struggle can continue on the front line. The struggle is going to be a long one, which means we need to recruit and involve concretely more young people. So this is number 9 on my list. The EDL has done a fantastic job in waking up and politicising a whole new generation of young people. And they're neglected and they're angry. Because especially if you're English in our country, you're not second class, you're right at the back of the queue and everybody knows it. And people are really angry about it. And that anger often leads to a lack of self-discipline, which is fatal to a serious radical movement. We saw it in Tommy, in the leader, the other day. Our lads need to know that self-pitying whining and hysterical arm-waving aren't part of our tradition, and they never won a war. Inarticulate rage, violence, drugs, it's all there amongst our young people because they haven't got proper leadership. On the question of drugs, which community controls the supplies of the coke, of the hash, of the heroin? Who's making money out of screwing our kids up? Resistance to Islam isn't just a matter of not buying their pizzas and not using their taxis. It's also about not buying their drugs. It's about educating our youngsters. It's about giving them some real hope. It's about providing real, solid, sensible, practical, rough, working class role models. It's about getting them involved in outdoor activities and giving them real challenges. It's not about going up, winding up Muslim communities. It's about building up communities of our own, and we've got to step up to the mark on that one. Point 10. As well as the lost generation of youngsters, out on our streets, there's far, far too many lost ex-servicemen. The EDL, as you know, started around homecoming parades. And one reason that we need a constructive programme like this is to rebuild the numbers on the streets so that future homecoming parades can be properly protected, and protected by people who are disciplined and are a credit to our movement. Those soldiers who are coming home, once they are home, they very quickly, many of them, end up homeless. We need to do something about that. We need to look for them, we need to find them, and we need to help them. And it's our people, ordinary working class people, out on the streets who can do it. There's an interesting example we could perhaps follow from France, where nationalist groups there have set up soup kitchens providing pea and ham soup for the homeless. And it's caused terrible fuss because, of course, any Muslim homeless can't enjoy the pea and ham soup. So it's been portrayed as racist and fascist and all the rest of the nonsense. But the important thing is it's got the message across. There's people in our movement who care for our homeless, and especially our homeless ex-servicemen. Help for Heroes and other groups like them do a fantastic job for injured soldiers. But no one dares to raise the point that the enemy in these wars are Muslims, and that many ex-soldiers are deeply shaken and really disturbed and upset to come home to a society that's increasingly Islamified. They deserve better than being left alone to rot in misery on our streets, and there's simple concrete steps to make sure that that doesn't happen. One of the things we can do is to raise further in our own community an awareness of what the men and women who've served in recent wars and continue to serve have sacrificed, and the awareness of the fact they're not something away on a distant television. These are youngsters from our streets, from our community. When I was over in Northern Ireland last, I saw a new kind of wall mural. I'm sure you've seen pictures of these giant pictures on the end of the gable end of a block of houses. And the old ones used to be painted. Quite difficult, a very skilled job, not something that can easily be exported from Northern Ireland to the streets of London or Birmingham or Manchester or wherever. But the new brand of murals are simply photo murals, giant, huge, expanded photographs of young British soldiers on active service in places like Afghanistan, and a simple message there, in grateful memory and thanks to all the men and women of this community who served in Her Majesty's Armed Forces. And simple roll of honour. Not necessarily been killed, just served. It's a fantastic thing. And over in Northern Ireland, these are catching on as one community of ours after another displays its pride and its gratitude to our young men and women who've served and continue to serve in our armed forces. Because while we reject and oppose the stupid wars they're in, we absolutely stand by the soldiers fighting those wars for honour and tradition and, in the end, the freedom of this country, and because they have to. And these murals do a great job of recognising that, and they also will mark out our community from those communities. It doesn't matter what happens in Walthamstow if in the English areas around it there's murals showing this is our place. If there's George Cross flags and Union Jack flags up on the lampposts, if the curbstones are painted red and white or red and white and blue. We need to get the older members of our community and our struggle, especially the ones near the end of their shelf life who can't afford to get nicked anymore. We need to get them raising the money and directing the youngsters to do this lively, edgy sort of stuff, which will mark out our community as having a pride. That's the important thing. If they want to have Sharia law in their communities, we can't stop it until we have state power to reverse the whole process, something to which I've dedicated my adult life. Until we've got it, we can't stop it. Let's stop worrying so much about their communities and worry about building up the resilience and the cohesion and the pride in ours. And finally, talking of walls and paint on walls, anyone sort of my age, 50-ish or whatever, when I say the words George Davis, you immediately know George Davis is innocent. I can't actually even remember what George Davis was supposed to have done, it's so long ago. But back in the 1970s, the slogan George Davis is innocent appeared on bridges and so on all over the country. And I remember asking people, what's that about? Who's George Davis? And for a few months, nobody knew. And then, in due course, everybody knew. And it got the point across. There was this big campaign and people made a point of finding out what it was all about. How much easier in the days of the internet, where if you saw Fred Bloggs is innocent, you can simply Google straight away, find out who he is and find out all about it. So I want to see, and I see no reason why we shouldn't see, slogans painted on walls, banners on bridges, leaflets handed out at football matches and rugby league games, with a simple message, justice for Charlene, explaining what happened to Charlene Downs, the most tragic victim of the Muslim grooming paedophile scandal in the whole of Britain so far. That campaign can work. That campaign will work if we throw our effort into it. And the experience gained in that campaign will roll on to give us more experience and more power and more passion and more commitment for future campaigns to right the wrongs against our people. It's all about awareness and confidence and numbers. And building on what the EDL was able to achieve before anger at the Zionist influence and frustration with police repression brought it to its current state of collapse. We need to work together, all of us, to ensure that the movement, the whole movement, goes in the right direction with well thought out long-term goals. Islamisation must be fought. We all understand that. It's about our kids' future, it's about the freedom, it's about the survival of our country. But it's only a symptom. Islamisation is only part of the bigger problem, a bigger problem of mass immigration that's on a scale whereby it's become colonisation. A problem of endless discrimination against anyone who's British, particularly anyone who's English. A problem of ethnic cleansing. It's not just about Islam. Where I stood in Barking and Dagenham in the last election, the wave of immigration that is turning our people into a minority and forcing them out of their own homes is of Christian Africans. That's nothing to do with Islam, it's to do with immigration, which is the root of the problem. We've got a problem also. We've got a generation of our youngsters raised deliberately without any knowledge of their own culture and their own roots. If that was done to any other people on the planet, everyone, all the liberals, all the left would recognise and name it for what it is: genocide. We can only stand up against that. They won't help us. We have to do it for ourselves. Because in turn, that's only a symptom of rule by a corrupt elite. Tommy said that I blame the Zionists for everything. That's simply not true. Nazi fools do that. I most certainly don't. The truth is far worse. It's that our own worst enemies are impeccably Anglo-Saxon, our own upper classes. The Bushes and the Cheneys in the USA. Those Tory toffs who go from Eton to Oxbridge to the PR departments of greedy corporations and then into Parliament to become our masters without ever doing a day's productive or honest work in their lives. It's not about religion or about race, it's about money and power and how the people with the money and the power fleece ordinary people. How do they do it? Because we let them. Because they're organised and we're not. Which is why we need to educate and inspire and organise our people. We need to inspire and organise them to take control. We need to take the power we need to save the land we love for the people we love. There's a great poem by Shelley, The Mask of Anarchy, which explains and talks about the English people rising up against our oppressors and despite all the pressure, all the repression, all the police violence against us, winning. And it finishes with this: rise like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like dew, which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. We are many, they are few. Let's unite, if not in one organisation, at least in one common cause, while that's still true, because it's about time.